Hello. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, welcome to this primary election candidate forum with candidates running for Legislative District 26, Position 2. My name is Bailey Wombold, and with me tonight is Liz Knox. She and I will be co-moderators for this forum. Also with us is Terry Baker, who will be the timekeeper. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Our mission is defending democracy and empowering voters. We hold candidate forums as a service to the public to provide voters with an opportunity to compare and contrast candidates before casting their votes. The League also influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League is open to any person age 16 and older who subscribes to the purpose and policies of the League and includes men as well as women. Before we begin opening statements and questions, Liz Knox will give the land acknowledgement and then explain the format.
The League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County wishes to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, surrounded by their traditional waters in the shadow of Mount Tahoma. We actively seek inclusive and respectful partnerships that honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and current realities. Once again, this forum is for the primary election on August 4th, and candidates with us tonight are Randy Phillips, Tedd Wetherbee, Renee Hernandez Greenfield, and Katy Cornell. Before we begin, the candidates have been given ground rules in advance, which include, among other provisions, that they will adhere to the rules of common courtesy and will not comment on the other candidates, but will focus on the issues, and that there will be no additional recordings made of this forum. Could we ask that you please confirm that you have agreed to these rules by a thumbs up or a nod? Okay, everybody's on board. If you have questions for the candidates, you may text them to 425-765-5388. Again, that number for texted questions is 425-765-5388. Questions must be directed to all candidates and may be consolidated or reworded. Candidates will be timed as they answer and may finish short sentences once the timer stops, but may not continue to speak after that. All candidates will be asked the same questions and have the same amount of time to answer. Please be sure to mute yourself when it is not your turn to speak and remain on gallery view so you can see the timer. Let's begin. The candidates for Legislative District 26, Position 2 are in ballot order: Randy Phillips, Tedd Wetherbee, Renee Hernandez Greenfield, and Katy Cornell. Each candidate will give an opening statement of up to 2 minutes. At the end, the candidates will give closing statements of up to 1 minute. So, opening statements, we will begin with Randy Phillips. Randy, please begin.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for doing this, putting it all together. Really appreciate it. My name is Randy Phillips, and I don't believe government exists to tell people how to live. I believe it exists to make sure that everyone has a fair chance to build the life that they choose. So when government is removing barriers instead of creating them, people can do incredible things. And that's why my campaign is focused really on 3 priorities. First, education. Every child deserves a great public education, and every adult deserves affordable pathways to new careers through apprenticeships, technical education, community colleges, universities, whatever that looks like for you. Second, mobility. Opportunity doesn't mean much if you can't get to work, you can't get to school, or even a doctor's appointment. So we need transportation systems that are going to move people safely and efficiently, whether they're driving, riding transit, biking, walking, or even taking the ferry. Third, I think government needs to work. People shouldn't have to fight through layers of bureaucracy just to access the services that they're already paying for. So we should expect government to be transparent, accountable, and really focused on results instead of just this rhetoric. I'm not running because I think that I have all the answers. I'm running because I believe that we can expect more out of our government than just excuses and bland talking points. We deserve leadership that listens, works hard, and never loses sight of the people that it's there to serve, which is you. So I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. Thank you, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. And now Tedd Wetherbee. Ted, you need to unmute.
Sorry about that. Thanks everyone for having us and for conducting this forum. It's very important for the constituents to know the candidates so they can make informed choices at the ballot box. I'm running because as the son of an immigrant mother from Nicaragua with 5 brothers and sisters that grew up in a lower income working class family, I understand that people need help from time to time, and we really need help right now in the LD 26. People are working 40 hours a week, and they're barely struggling to stay above water. And I don't think they're getting the ability to thrive. They're just trying to survive. I think it's important that my time in Olympia over the last 11 years, advocating and lobbying for my industry, has showed me how policy is made often in the abstract and not with realization of how it impacts people on the ground in real world situations. I think I bring real lived experience to Olympia. I think that with that, I can help people understand how policy being made can impact you. And instead of advocating and legislating in a vacuum, they need to understand what our constituents need and how we're going to help them get there. So my main concerns are affordability, transportation access, childcare access, access to accessible healthcare that has a value that's not going to put you into bankruptcy. All of those things are super important, and mostly listening and learning from our constituents what we need, what they need, and what we can deliver for them. I'm not running as a career politician. I'm running to see what change I can affect in Olympia and how I can help my constituents get ahead.
Thank you. And now Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
Good evening, Renee Hernandez Greenfield. Excited to be here with you this evening. I'm running because policy looks different when you depend on it and have depended on it. I'm running because over my 23-year career across both Kitsap and Pierce counties, I've worked and walked alongside families who are navigating the systems that the legislature is responsible for. I've spent my career implementing state policy, and the time is now to create better policy. There are 3 reasons why I'm running. The first is family. So my brother was adopted at the age of 3, and he struggled in school with what we know now is ADHD, and I watched my mom and dad work and navigate that school system. At the same time, I also know and understand my mother herself advocated. She was actually suspended from school in the 1950s for speaking Spanish. That taught me that systems don't always see people for where they are and where they're at, and that advocacy absolutely changes lives. The second is my son. He comes to us by way of tribal child foster care. And so we navigate Medicaid. We navigate years-long wait lists. We navigate services in real time now. So when you're the parent that's depending on those systems, you quickly learn where things work and when they don't work. The third is my work every day over these last 23 years, which is also rooted in the focus of my campaign, is the work I do as an educator, working with children with special needs. I sit with families as we navigate concerns about health access, housing access, and healthcare. Children and families, and communities, we don't experience their lives in silos. And neither should the government. People closest to the issues absolutely should help shape the solution. And I'm going to bring that voice to Olympia.
Thank you. And now Katy Cornell.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having this forum and having me here tonight. It's very amazing. And first and foremost, so I'm from Port Orchard, Washington. I grew up here my entire life in the 26 LD. I've never lived farther than Kirkland and Bothell, but lived in and around the 26th district in Washington State my entire life. This is my home, my community. We all have our stories. Grew up single mom. I got my first job at 16 and did Running Start and got my associate's degree in high school and got a full ride WAVE scholarship to Northwest University and studied psychology psychology, got married super young, got married at 18, been married 18 years now, have 3 beautiful teenagers. But this is my my home. My family is here, and so many of the people that we love are leaving the state because they can't afford to stay here anymore. Seniors are being priced out of their homes and are moving due to those types of things. But most importantly for me, which has been mentioned many times by others, but is that the government and our programs that we care most about to take care of our most vulnerable are not working. And I spent my whole career, 18 years, doing community development. May that be building schools, health centers. We've had deaf schools, all sorts of different things, maternity centers, doing trade schools, all sorts of different things, but developing programs that are effective and work and help bring people out of poverty and into opportunity, as everyone has mentioned. And when I look around and see our programs, I don't see that they're working. It's too hard to access things for our veterans, long delays. Our foster care system is broken. Our prison system is broken. Our recidivism rates are terrible. And I just look around and thinking, oh my gosh, I want to fix these things. And I really believe that I can do that. I want to serve in this way, to serve our community, to fix what's broken so we can see people change their lives. So in prison, that's our greatest opportunity to see people's work on the issues they need to work on and get out and rebuild their lives and start things. And so you name it, I want to fix it. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you all. Now we will begin the questions. For most questions, candidates will have 90 seconds to respond, although we may announce a slightly shorter time on occasion. The candidate speaking first on each question will rotate. Liz and I will alternate asking questions. Since Randy Phillips gave the first opening statement, we will begin the questions with Tedd Wetherbee. Question number 1. Again, you will have 90 seconds to answer. What are your budget priorities for Legislative District 26? Why? How would you fund them? And will they require less spending in other areas? You have 90 seconds.
Budget priorities in the 26 revolve for me around affordability issues. We need housing, attainable housing. We need to fix our transportation system, things that people rely on every day in order to carry out their day-to-day lives and get to work. Budgeting at a state level, I'm a small business owner. We all operate on budgets. Budgets have to be as tightly controlled as possible. We can't budget and find ourselves in budgetary deficits where we're just pulling from other areas in the budget and shortchanging other aspects of our budget. Our budgets need to be transparent and accountable, and we need to make sure that the funds we are using and have allocated and have on hand are being used in the best ways possible. We need to make sure they're reaching the people that need it most and they're being spent the most effective way. What we have to do there is make sure we avoid redundancies and overlap, where you have several services treating the same problem and wasting money in those regards. We need to make sure that money's not falling through the cracks. But in the LD26, definitely affordability, housing, transportation, and how we generate those funds, well, we need to fix our regressive tax system and see if we have a manner of producing more funds without taxing people to death, particularly lower income and working families who are suffering the most under this system that we have right now.
Thank you. Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
Good budgeting is about priorities, and we must remember that prevention is one of the most important investments a government can make, and right now we're not budgeting for that. And every tax dollar should deliver results, and we need to protect systems that make us affordable place to be. Right? We need to protect public education. We need to protect childcare and early learning. We need to protect healthcare, behavioral health, public safety, and transportation, among many. So when we talk about budgeting, we need to be clear about reviewing outdated or ineffective programs, and that's in community with our local governments across our region. And we need to eliminate duplication. I'm a former social worker myself, and so we must not always go to cutting frontline services, because that's what happens when we talk about reviewing budgets and making cuts. We need to modernize systems, and we need to improve efficiency. There's many ways that we need to budget in that way, and that means in community and partnership. with governments, with unions, with community members, to improve overall efficiency and be sure that we're protecting those systems and get at all the needs of housing. Why is it so expensive to build here and be successful? And that begins with community.
Thank you. Katy Cornell.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so with the budget, as we know, we're going into this next legislative session with another projected around another $8 billion deficit. And so my thing in that is we need to make sure that we're taking care of our paramount duties first, which of course is education and infrastructure. If we are fully funding education at the state level, that would allow us to not put so much on our property taxes, which would make housing more affordable for people, especially our seniors and people on fixed incomes. And so one of my priorities is that we fully fund education at the state level to take a burden off of people at the levy level. I think that's super important and a practical and constitutional thing that we could do. I also think that just with everybody's, we need to make sure that we've streamlined things, make things work better. Everything takes so long to get done. And imagine the man hours put into that when people are waiting a year for an L&I to be approved. And so if we can make things more efficient, I believe we can help more people for less money, and we can make our budget and our dollars stretch more. I think locally in our 26th district, Renee mentioned this really well, prevention, but also saving. We need to be saving money for the future, just like I do for my roof in my house. We need to be saving for bridges, like the Fox Island bridges should have been, it's a county, but the state's going to have to help with that. But we have the Purdy Bridge. We have so many priorities in our community, in our district, that we need to fight for those dollars as your representatives. And that's what I'm going to go to Olympia to do, to make sure we fund the infrastructure in the 26th district.
Thank you. Randy Phillips.
Yeah, thanks. Great question. When I think of budgets, they're more than just numbers on spreadsheets. When we talk about the state budget, we're really talking about like our priorities as a state and promises to the taxpayers that we're going to spend that money wisely. We need to make sure that we have balanced responsibilities between investment with like long-term fiscal sustainability. We got to prioritize programs that demonstrate measurable results. We need to continue evaluating the existing spending before we're creating new opportunities, new programs. And we have to increase the transparency so that the taxpayers are really understanding where their money is going. And we need to use performance metrics to really like guide these budget decisions. We have to protect our essential services such as education, transportation, public safety. I think all the other candidates have made really good points of what is paramount to our state. But we need to plan for long-term obligations, like Katy was saying. We can't just continuously rely on these short-term fixes. We need to invest in infrastructure and workforce development because that's what's going to strengthen Washington's economy over time. Essentially, every dollar government spends belongs to the people who earned it, and we have a responsibility to spend it wisely, measure the results, and be transparent about the outcomes. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. As Washington's summers become hotter and drier, what suggestions do you have to help Washingtonians address the threat of wildfires and smoke? And we will begin with Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
Earth is absolutely lifting up the good work that our counties are doing, as well as our cities, which our counties and our cities work beautifully well together. I think of the work on the Key Peninsula through the Key Peninsula County Council, Community Council, excuse me, to bring prevention knowledge to the communities. And so, as the legislator, having relationships and being sure that we're lifting up that work and prevention. It's always prevention. It starts with the great work within each of our areas of the district, and being sure that we're not putting up state barriers that prevent those types of relationships from taking place, and also being sure we're consulting with our tribes, who also do important work with that informs the local communities that they do every day and share with those around. And for me, tribal consultation is paramount to that, early, often, and meaningfully. And that would also support those regional prevention efforts to combat wildfire, as well as floods. We live in an area where we have our climate is adjusting, and we're seeing that every day. And we've just experienced that with recent flooding. And all of that is tied to the health of our ecosystem. And we must do that in partnership with our counties and our cities and our tribes.
Thank you. And Katy Cornell next, please.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I think for me, the biggest part is the prevention of keeping our forests and removing the dead trees and the brushes and all the things like that, and really making sure we're investing in prevention of the fires and water reservoirs, and making sure that we're ready to go, and that our fire fighters and things like that, and just all the infrastructure is there to be prepared. And so I think there's those types of measures that we can take to make sure that we're working. And I think we could, think back to, years ago in the United States, is we can enlist our communities and volunteers and so many different ways to work together at this, because this is something I do hear at the doors a lot, especially in the rural communities that feel like they could be trapped by fires and don't have an exit plan. And so there is a lot of need for those types of emergencies and emergency planning. And I think some of this, together as a community, we can work together to accomplish some of those goals and make sure that we are able to do that effectively with our tax dollars. And so I definitely, we need to continue to move forward in this and prepare to save lives. And I can defer the rest of my time.
Sorry. Thank you. And now Randy Phillips.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, when I think about the wildfire, I remember going over to Eastern Washington and being evacuated out of campsites because of smoke rolling in from Canada, and it's a very real thing. And I think we first off have to make sure that we are supporting our firefighters and our EMTs and our emergency management systems. Those need to be a priority for when those things come up. Public safety is huge. We can also protect Washington's natural beauty while growing a strong economy. I think we need to improve the forest health to reduce these wildfire risks, making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to when we need to mobilize, we can get where we need to go and fast. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. And now Tedd Wetherbee. Be sure to unmute, Tedd.
I'm sorry about that. Firstly, we need to understand and make people realize that climate change is a real deal. The idea that we have these 100-year occurrences that they used to be called 100-year storms or 100-year fires are occurring every other year now. We have to be prepared. We have to have prevention measures in place, and we have to have evacuation plans for people. The Key Pen is a very difficult place to get off of. There's very few routes off of the Key Pen. We need to, as everybody has mentioned, invest in forest health. It's super important. We need to strengthen our emergency response. We need to have better evacuation planning, as I mentioned, and we need to ensure that our wildland firefighters have the training they need, and the volunteers that we have the training they need to be able to do this. Of course, the state has an aspect in this with making sure that we can fund aspects of these responsiveness measures and evacuation measures. But again, we need to make sure that everybody's aware that this is no longer an issue that happens once in a blue moon. There are occurrences that are happening all the time now, and we need to be prepared for those. We need to be able to have adequate pay and training for our firefighters now, so that we retain them and don't have to go through retraining processes constantly. And making sure, again, prevention and preparedness, that's what's going to make responses to these occurrences better, swifter, and safer for everyone.
Thank you. Question number 3. For this next question, we will start with Katy Cornell. While you would represent Legislative District 26 if elected, you would make decisions that impact the entire state. Describe one of the most critical issues facing Washington state as a whole in the next year and explain how you would help address that issue. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I mean, obviously there's many issues, but one of the ones that I'm most passionate about is we need to make reforms to the Family Reconciliation Act that got passed a few years ago, where we are seeing when they redefined imminent danger, they're no longer able to remove children from homes that have active fentanyl use in them, and we're seeing so many babies die that could have been saved and removed from a drug. Homes with drugs in them. And so I really want to fight for and work for protecting our children in that way, as well as working on the fentanyl crisis overall, to bring some reforms back to after the Blake's decision. We made some good progress towards making a more equitable system, but we didn't quite finish that whole loop on making it to where when people do commit crimes on drugs and they get charged with that, I believe that we need to, a lot of the treatment options are outpatient, are not proven to be effective, and we need to actually make sure people are getting the treatment, the help that they need, and that we're holding repeat offenders accountable to that, to hopefully, one, save their lives from drug overdoses. I don't think it's compassionate to let people stay on drugs on the streets while, of course, committing crimes that make our communities unsafe and rise a cost in our communities for our insurance and all these other things. A part of our affordability crisis is the fact that nobody believes when they call the cops anymore. When when I had both my cars broken into, my garage was robbed, and I got a QR code, to submit the claim, and there's not justice anymore.
Thank you. Next, Randy Phillips.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question one more time? I want to make sure I address it.
Absolutely. While you would represent Legislative District 26 if elected, you would make decisions that impact the entire state. Describe one of the most critical issues facing Washington state as a whole in the next year and explain how you would address that issue.
Thank you. Well, I think opportunity shouldn't just depend on your zip code for one thing. I think all of Washingtonians deserve access to opportunities at all level. And I still think that I think education is the best economic development program that we have to offer, especially with education being more focused on the states and needing to fund itself. I really think that is we're moving in the right direction. Last year, Governor Ferguson had the FAFSA completion that came through to where in order to graduate high school, we have to now fill out a FAFSA application to see if you can get financial aid to continue your schooling. I think that if we are going to continue to have to battle against this $8 billion deficit that we're walking into, we need to figure out how to fix that long term. And I think by improving access to education, starting at early childhood and working all the way up through trade school or college, university, but you shouldn't need a PhD in bureaucracy to get help that you need either. So yeah, I honestly, I love Washington. I think we're doing good things, and I think we can do those good things better. And instead of focusing on what's bad, we need to improve what we have that's good.
Thank you. Tedd Wetherbee.
First things first, in Washington, we have an affordability issue, as we have across the country. People can't afford proper housing. They can't afford childcare. They can't afford healthcare. We need to focus on affordability issues in our district and across the state. By doing so, we will allow people to progress. More affordable and attainable housing is key. People need to be able to live and work in the communities where they want to be. Entry-level housing has suffered, and people simply can't afford new housing. We need to support our public schools, strengthen them, make sure they're fully funded and fairly funded. As Randy mentioned, zip code should not determine your level of education or what kind of education you get. Workforce training. We need to do that. People can access jobs, good paying jobs. Right now, the trades are going through the roof and people are turning to that. So we need to give them those options while they're in school so they can look at these options without having to look at a 4-year institution for a degree. And then finish with improving our transportation infrastructure. We need to build attainable housing around transportation hubs, places where people can get to and from work without spending hours in their car, idling, harming the environment, wasting time and money on gasoline. So it's an overall picture. It's not just one thing you can do. It's a basket of things that we have to look at and do our best to strengthen.
Thank you. Finally, Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
Childcare is not a luxury. It is absolutely workforce infrastructure. Early learning, it's education, and in order for us to get to work, to stay at work, we need access. The childcare crisis is both education and an economic issue, right? When families, when they can't afford affordable childcare, when providers, it's too expensive to open their own business because many are small businesses. Parents can't work. My husband and I experienced that. Parenting a child with autism, we found a great childcare provider, and it took many years to just through trial and error and partnership, because the system is not set up. It's as if childcare is an option or something to just choose from, when it's absolutely what workers and business owners need, right? And that childcare providers, they deserve a living wage. Families deserve affordable options. And that's the first work that we need to do, is we need to have sustainable public investment that benefits providers that are working to open and stay open and provide a living wage for those teachers that are working there, as well as that benefits families and employers, because we're able to get to work and stay at work. And that is at the core of every of the affordability issue for me.
Thank you.
And now to question 4, and this is one of our first call-in audience questions tonight. Given that revenue from the millionaire's tax won't come in until 2029, what would be your ideas for how to avoid deep cuts to state services in the interim? And we'll begin with Tedd Wetherbee.
Got that mute button this time. I will start by saying what I mentioned earlier. We need to make sure that our dollars are being used effectively and reaching the people that they need to use in our budget. We need to identify overlap and redundancy, which I mentioned before, and we need to make sure that the programs, the core services that we have at the moment, are being fully funded before we bring on new services and new programs. We can't rob Peter to pay Paul, in the sense that we're just looking for budgetary holes to fill from other things. We need to support small businesses, which are the local economy backbone. They're revenue generators, they're employers, they put people into the system that can spend money and generate more revenue. All of those things need to be done in order to achieve our goal. The millionaire's tax is a step in the right direction. I would mention that it's going to take several years for us to get a clear picture of what that tax actually brings in. We know that everybody does not earn the same amount of money every year. So if we're basing it on a certain number of what we expect revenue to be, next year, people might make less. Some people will make a little more, but it's going to take a few years for us to figure out exactly what that tax is going to generate for us. But clear, transparent, accountable budgets that are making sure that our dollars are going where they needed and being used the most effectively is what I would say.
Thank you. And next, Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
I don't start first with what to cut. I start first with what systems families and communities depend on to keep running, and then how we do that without upsetting the needed delivery of those important systems. And so when I go back to those priorities, being sure we are protecting public education, transportation, healthcare, our ferries, public safety, right? So you start there, and then looking at in partnership with our unions, with our community members, with families that are affected by this, which is the work in my experience, bringing families to the legislature to testify and share, to make sure that their legislators are informed when they're making these decisions. Is you start there, and you prioritize, and you look at absolutely protecting the frontline work, because cuts at the front end always cause more, just shifts the cost in another area. You see that in public safety, where cuts to behavioral health access then results in sheriff's deputies having to act as social workers, when that is, they protect and serve, but that focus, right, is it just shifts costs around. So it's important to look at redundancies and issues in community.
Thank you. And now Katy Cornell.
Yes, thank you so much. So ultimately, I want to grow the revenue of our state, and we do that through more jobs and more growth. And so one of the things that, the last few years we've been losing, Boeing and so many other companies are building their other place, putting 6,000 jobs in other states that should be here. And so I want to work on getting more. We need our big corporations to still be here, because they build the buildings that our unions work on. And I've been talking to the union workers, and they're like, look, we've been fighting for all of our rights, but if we don't have jobs to build or bridges to build, we don't have workers for our unions. As I've been doorbelling, they're out. People are telling me they're going to Idaho for work. They're going out of state for work. And so I want to figure out how to grow our economy, bring jobs back to our state, help I met with the Port of Bremerton. We can have 3,000 more jobs out there. These are good paying jobs for our community. And so I want to focus on generating revenue, because a huge part of our state budget and revenue and our income comes from businesses and B&O taxes. And then, of course, if people are making more money, then the sales tax also increases. And so the more we can look at reducing the regressive taxes, like the gas tax that just increased again on January 1st, and everywhere at the door today and all week, all I could hear is the gas is so expensive, and we have the most expensive gas in the state. And when we do that, we don't have people spending money that generates revenue. And so I think more about revenue growth. If we grow our budget, we don't have to make the cuts.
Thank you. And Randy Phillips.
Thank you very much. Great question. Thank you to whoever asked that. So Washington has one of the most regressive tax structures in the country, because we rely heavily on sales tax, which is always going to tend to fall more heavily on the working families, the ones out there going and buying their groceries at the mom and pop shop. And I think that's a legitimate concern that I have, and that I think a lot of people have. At the same time, tax policy shouldn't just be judged on how the revenue is raised. It should also be judged on whether or not we're spending those dollars effectively and delivering results for the people who are paying for them. I'm definitely open to conversations about making our tax system fairer, but any proposals that should be evaluated, we need 3 questions answered. Is it fair? Is it sustainable? And does it help Washington invest in priorities like education, transportation, housing, public safety, while we're maintaining accountability to taxpayers? It's terrible that we are only behind California in gas prices. Like, how do we get those down? There's so many things that need to be looked at and gone through with a fine-tooth comb to answer those questions. It'll be great when that millionaire tax money rolls in, but until then, how do we put the Band-Aid on the situation?
Thank you. Awesome. Next question is also an audience question. And for this one, we will have 60 seconds to answer. And for this next question, I may have gotten mixed up in my order, but we'll start with Renee Hernandez Greenfield. This question is, across the country, we see opposition to data centers in both rural and urban areas. Do you believe that the environmental and energy impacts of data centers outweigh the value?
Yes. At this point, yes, because at this point there is no relationship or conversations that includes the communities where they're placed, who's working there, how they're being built, who's building them, the water use. We're seeing that in our water bills. When I'm at the doors, people are not even aware at this moment. They're wondering why their water bill went up there when their usage is the same. And there's not a lot of information, right, out there about this impact. That many tribes are talking about this as well, because again, it is the benefit. Technology is here, and the future is here, as they say. And at the same time, the legislature needs to do work that involves who's building, what's the impact, what's mitigation like, and all of those details. Because right now we're seeing it on our bills, and we're worried about our environment, and there's not enough answers.
Thank you. Katy Cornell.
Yes, thank you so much. So I've been researching this more and more as it has come up in several interviews and things like that. And, there's two different types of data centers. There's the more basic ones that are the storage for our phones, and then there are the super AI ones, and both of which are very different. And so I want to make sure we separate those because they do have a different impact. And so when we kind of clump them all together, it can be a little bit different. And so I've been trying to find out, because there was some rumors about a data center being built out in the 26th district and maybe out by the port. And I've talked to the port commissioners and confirmed that there is no talks of one going in. And so to my understanding, there isn't one going to be built in my district or in my area. And so I'm just going to continue to look at that information and try to best wrap my head around that for when that day comes where we need to have these conversations.
Thank you. Randy Phillips.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to who asked this question. I mean, data centers they're going to be an important part of our economy and our future as leaders in technology and artificial intelligence. They do bring investment, some jobs, and they support the digital services that we all so heavily rely on. At the same time, they do place real demands on our electric grids, water systems, and local infrastructure. So my approach is pretty straightforward. Welcome the innovation, but we have to plan responsibly. That means making sure that infrastructure can support any new development, protecting our community resources. And we have to ensure that taxpayers and our residents are seeing the clear benefits of these investments. We don't have to choose between economic growth and responsible stewardship. With thoughtful planning, I think we can have both, but we need to ask, how can we make sure major technology investments are strengthening the communities that they're located in?
Thank you. Thank you. Finally, Tedd Wetherbee. You're still muted.
I think we all agree on this issue, right? Data centers can bring construction jobs, good union jobs, and that's great. Maintenance for those centers is often highly automated, so the job projections there really don't come to pass. If you look them up, you see that most people are talking about producing thousands of jobs, and it ends up being a few hundred. If a project can't protect our environment or shifts costs onto the consumers, it should not move forward. These are billion-dollar corporations that are building these revenue-generating machines, and they want to do it on the backs of our constituents. They want to shift their costs for power and water and the infrastructure building onto us, and I am totally against that. I like the idea of the innovation. I like the idea of long-term investment, but it cannot come on the backs of the people that live around those data centers. It is simply not possible.
Thank you. And our next question is another audience question. LGBTQ plus rights are under attack by the current federal administration and some state elected leaders. Do you believe gay marriage is a right and should be protected? And for this, we will begin with Katy Cornell.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I believe in equal rights for everyone under the law, and I believe that this decision has been decided by the federal Supreme Court and should be upheld, and that all of the rights of Washington should be protected within our state. And so that's the whole point of the Constitution, is equal rights for everybody. And so I think that's super important as we make legislation in Olympia, that we, as representatives, it's our job to uphold our laws of our land and of our state. And so that we would honor that and protect that. And so that's a super important part of being a representative. And so I'm very honored to be able to serve every single person in our district to make sure that we do what we can to protect, every part of our vulnerable communities. Thank you for this great question.
Yes, and next, Randy Phillips, same question.
Yeah, thank you. Every Washingtonian, every American, every human being on this planet deserves to be treated with dignity, respect, and equal protections under the law. I support equal treatment. I oppose discrimination. Yes, I believe anybody should be able to marry whoever they so choose. Love is love, and it is beautiful. That's all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Renee Hernandez. Oh, wait a minute. Tedd Wetherbee. Sorry.
I also won't need a full 90 seconds to answer this. Like Randy said, love is love. We should be promoting people that love each other and not trying to take away their rights. Dignity and respect for everyone. It's a fundamental right and it should be protected. I would go to Olympia and make sure that nothing that's happening at the federal level will affect us here in Washington. What's happening right now is a catastrophe. A moment ago, we heard that, well, the law of the land and the Constitution. Well, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land for 50 years, and the Supreme Court nominees all stood in front of Congress or sat in front of Congress and said they wouldn't touch it. And as soon as they could, they did. And if you don't think that they're coming after the right for gay people to marry, you're wrong. That's why we have to put up safeguards and barriers at our state level to make sure that everybody in this state has the right to marry who they love and are protected in doing so. So that's all I have to say. We will protect our communities.
And now Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
Yes, but we will safeguard the right to marry who we love, and as well as utilize the seat to actively safeguard that right in a state situation, that there is no state barrier, say that does get challenged at that federal level, and we must safeguard what we have here. This was actually at a door that we spoke. My husband and I spoke with someone who is multiple people extremely concerned about this very issue, just based on what's happening federally, and understanding that everything can change in a moment. And I would utilize this seat to be sure that we are not standing in the way of our laws that say you can marry who you want. And I absolutely value and uphold that.
Thank you. This next question will be our final question for the evening. And we will start with Randy Phillips, and you will have 90 seconds. Residents of the 26th District have asked about the detention and treatment of immigrants by ICE in the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. What is your opinion about this, and what will you do as a Washington state legislator to help assure proper and fair treatment of those detainees? Randy, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you for the question. While immigrant enforcement is a federal responsibility, and I respect the role that the federal government plays in enforcing our nation's immigration laws, any detention facility operating in Washington should be meeting basic standards for health, safety, and humane treatment. No, period, full stop. And that is a fundamental expectation of what we expect as Americans and how I believe people should be treated. So I support transparency, accountability, and lawful oversight to ensure that those facilities comply with any standards that are set forth. We can uphold the rule of law while also expecting that people in custody are treated with dignity and that those facilities are operating. If they're going to operate in our communities, it's going to be safe for everyone involved. I know there's been problems with the one in Tacoma of people not being able to be let in. Our officials, the people that we choose to represent us cannot get into these facilities, and that's an issue. In terms of how I would deal with that, I would need to do more research and figure out who to talk to. But yeah, things need to change over there.
Thank you. Tedd Wetherbee.
Well, I'll start by saying that ICE and its enforcement policies and what it's doing is an abomination to us as Americans and Washingtonians. Snatching people off the streets without due process, meeting people at their immigration hearings where they're actually following the law and then arresting them, shipping them off. Their families don't know where they are. There's no contact. This is personal to me. My mother was a Nicaraguan immigrant, and I can only imagine her on her walk to work, which she did every day, being snatched up and disappeared, and no one knows where she is. We need to make sure that in Washington, which our governor has done, thankfully, and our legislature supports, the idea that no mask on ICE, identification, where are these people going? We're keeping track of where they are. And as Randy mentioned, humane and dignity and proper standards while they're in custody. They should have access to counsel. They should have access to their families. And I will support any steps to make sure that happens and we protect our citizens regardless of immigration status.
Thank you. Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
I support Keep Washington Working. That means that we are ensuring that our state systems are not supporting this effort, because we've had two instances in on the Kitsap side of the 26th where we have had two people kidnapped in Port Orchard, only to find out weeks later that they are legal green card holders. That is, not only is it anguish for the family and anguish for the community and worry, but also a great cost to taxpayers. And they're over in Tacoma, separated from their family. I'm concerned that we're not utilizing, that us as legislator are not utilizing the seat to be sure that we're partnering with our Congresswoman and our to be sure that she has all the things that she needs in order to do those visits that she does, because that is where the situation is, that ICE is operating in a way that is not in line with our state laws and work and focus. And this seat must hold that central to everything that they do, because this is terrorizing families and communities, and it is extremely personal. Many are carrying their passports on them, including me, and we should not have to do that. This is the United States, and this is Washington State. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, Katy Cornell.
Yes, thank you so much for this great question. As someone who's worked with refugees and immigration and all sorts of things for so long, I think that anyone should be treated humanely and have safe environments and be treated in the way that they should. Doesn't matter if it's in our own prisons here in Purdy or in Raymond Hall or in the detention center. We need to hold anyone accountable to make sure there's not abuse of any kind happening. And unfortunately, I think we see that across the board. We are seeing more and more people come forward from Raymond Hall and lawsuits after lawsuits. And I imagine my question, and I need to do more research, is what are the actions that can be taken at this federal level? It doesn't matter if it's ICE or if it's our police. When we enforce the law, we need to do it right, and we need to do it in a respectful way and treat people with dignity and respect. And so as a legislature, that's how I'll operate across the board to make sure that we are doing things the right way and lobbying to whatever ability I have to our Congress men and women in our state to make sure that we're taking care of any residents of Washington State in a respectful way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that was our last question. So that's the end of the question portion of our forum. We're sorry we did not get to all the audience questions. Now it is time for closing statements, which will be 1 minute each and given in the reverse order from the opening statement. So we will begin with Katy Cornell.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, this was a wonderful time and so rich in dialogue. I think what's most important for me to leave you with is I really do believe we can balance the budget without cutting critical services to our communities. We can do that both by streamlining government, making it work, make it effective, using technology to upgrade things, and by growing revenue and growing our economy, bringing jobs to our state and to our local 26th district. I want to make sure that our jobs are being done locally, that we're getting all the contracts we can for our local workers, and that money's not leaving our state for work that could be done in the state. I'm going to do what I can to serve and work for the people of the 26th district to fight for lowering our energy costs and our housing costs at the state level. There are so many things that we can do to update our policies to make sure that we can build and we can grow and that we have equal opportunity for everybody. That's the whole point is that we need to make sure that everyone has opportunity to succeed. And I know I've benefited from that my entire life through scholarships and all the different things, and I want to make sure we continue.
Thank you, Renee Hernandez Greenfield.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for this time this evening. It's been very important as we discuss all of these issues. Our district deserves a representative who knows what it's like to depend on these systems, not just to debate them. I believe that leadership absolutely starts with listening and relationships, and all that matters, and that people closest to the challenges have the answers, and that they should shape the solutions in housing, in bringing revenue, in growing businesses, in addressing our infrastructure, in addressing housing, affordability, all the issues that we've discussed this evening. And they need to help and shape those solutions. I'd be honored to earn your trust and support, and thank you for this opportunity to share it with you all.
Thank you. And Tedd Wetherbee.
Just when I'm getting hang of the mute button, it's over. Listen, I'm not doing this as a career or a paycheck or a pension. I'm doing this because I want to go to Olympia and see what change I can affect for the people of our district and our state. It's not about politics for me, it's about people. We have to work with everyone we can to achieve our goals, and that's what I plan on doing. We need to make Washington more affordable. We need to strengthen our public schools. We need to invest in transportation, infrastructure, healthcare. People are losing access to hospitals as they leave their communities, and we need to do everything we can to listen, learn, and assist our constituents, because that's why they select us to go there for them. I'm not doing it for a seat. I'm doing it for this district and this state, and hopefully have some effect at a national level and just stop the madness that's going on and protect our rights. We are losing rights daily, and they want to take more of them away, and I cannot abide by that. So thank you for having us. I think it was an excellent forum. Kudos for what you do.
Thank you. And Randy Phillips.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having us, to Katy, Tedd, and Renee. Thank you guys for putting your name in the hat as well. Throughout this campaign, I've talked about 3 priorities: education, mobility, and a government that works. But they all really come back to one simple belief, and that's that government should create opportunity and not obstacles. I'm not running because I have all the answers. I'm running because I know what it's like to work hard, adapt when life changes, and build something better through perseverance. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. I've started a small business. I've gone back to school as an adult. I've seen firsthand how opportunity can change a life, and I want every family in the 26th district to have that same chance. If you send me to Olympia, I promise to listen before I speak. I will work with anyone who has a good idea, and I will measure success by results, not just the headlines it garnishes. Together, we can build stronger schools, safer communities, and I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the candidates for participating in this forum and to the audience for watching. The candidates for Legislative District 26, Position 2 are in ballot order Randy Phillips, Tedd Wetherbee, Renee Hernandez Greenfield, and Katy Cornell. 2 of these candidates will move on to the general election in November.
Viewers can expect to receive ballots the week of July 20th to 24th. Be sure to vote on or before August 4th. Before you do, also check out the League of Women Voters online voters guide at vote411.org and go to votewa, that's votewa.org, to check your voter registration or to register if you have not yet done so. Both sites identify ballot issues and candidate information specific to your own voting precinct. We encourage everyone to use that as a resource in addition to the standard voters pamphlet. The voters pamphlet for the August 4th election is available online now if you want to read about candidates there before you receive your ballot. You will find our other candidate forums and a link to the recording of this one at our website, lwvtpc.org. You can also find the site by searching for the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County. Thank you to the candidates, our timekeeper, Terry Baker, to Chloe Wilhelm, our Zoom master, and to you for watching. Your vote is due by 8 p.m. on August 4th. We recommend voting as soon as possible once you receive your ballot and turning it into a ballot drop box near you. Most of all, please remember to vote because your vote really does count. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.